Good morning. That football analogy is going to be hard to beat. But I was thinking that with all of you here, the best thing perhaps I could do right now is to show you the Champions League finals on the big screen. But since that's a few days away, let's talk about what we are doing and the exciting things that we believe you could be doing, and some of you are, with customer engagement. My name is Ashu Roy. I'm the CEO of eGain. I want to spend some time talking to you about 4 different things. First of all, I want to talk to you about what we've been up to for the last 12 months at eGain, which is quite fun and productive, and we have done some nice things with our customers. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Then I want to spend some time talking about our approach to customer engagement, which has not changed a lot over the last couple of years. We have evolved it, we have enhanced it, we have made it more real. But fundamentally, the idea that customer engagement is about delivering a holistic solution, which is in fact modeled after the customer engagement hub framework that Brian talks about. And he's right. There is no provider on the planet, including eGain, that provides a complete, perfect, absolutely nothing else needed capability around the customer engagement hub. However, there are some who do better than others. And we believe that we do a pretty good job. So I want to talk to you about that. Then I want to talk to you about what we have in terms of new capabilities that are quite exciting and things that you'll be able to see downstairs as well as talk to our team. And finally, I'd like to talk about areas or vectors of enhancement and innovation that we are looking forward to, where we are starting to make some interesting new capabilities that we're putting together, which are not production ready yet, but we are working with some lead customer and partner organizations, and we'd love to get you engaged in those as well. So with that said, let's get started. Looking back at last year, quickly going through what we've been able to accomplish over the last 12 months. First of all, as a business, about 2 years ago, we became a pure cloud company in terms of all our forward-looking investment and innovation, which means that every bit of our product development and R&D resources, all our expertise, everything is focused on moving forward on a cloud-based approach, which gives us the ability to serve you much quicker, much more cost-effectively, and with much less risk. And we have developed new programs that seem to be working very well. I'll talk to you about that in a bit. The next thing that we are feeling very good about is that our customer success investments, we made that starting about 3 years ago, are becoming more and more beneficial for our clients. And by that, I mean we are, as a company, we have pivoted away from being a implement and leave business to being a proactive, continuously engaged with our clients' strategy of transformation, which means we are working with our clients, with yourselves, many of you, with our organizations, continuously working with your own program management and transformation teams over a period of time with small, quick improvements on our solution. And we feel like that's creating a lot of opportunity for new ideas getting implemented in your environment quickly. Brian talked about that. Speed is one of the biggest determinants of success. If you can implement fast, if you can deliver capabilities fast in your environment, your chances of failure go down dramatically. Because you aim small, you miss small. You course correct. And to us, this proactive customer engagement has helped us deliver that to our clients. So we feel very good about that. The capabilities we've been able to bring to you at different levels of our solution are something that we feel good about as well. I'll break that into two buckets. First of all, at the platform level, which means your solutions, your existing investments in the enterprise around legacy software, whether it is sitting in the customer area or whether in the communication area or the content area, how do we connect into those systems easily so that we can deliver the right sort of smart engagement to your clients? That platform integration capability we have enhanced significantly. You can see a lot of that in the demos downstairs. You can talk to our product professionals. They'll tell you how easy it is for you to connect our platform into other systems of record in your organization, the silos that Brian talked about. And then finally, we have enhanced our partner ecosystem, the ecosystem that we believe is critical to deliver a full solution to large enterprises, yourselves. We know that we cannot be the only supplier of technology in customer engagement for you. We know that we need to work with complementary providers, whether they are consulting organizations, whether they are technology peers. So, for example, we have had a long-standing partnership and a successful one with Cisco as a technology platform provider. In the last 12 months, we have enhanced that with expanding our partnership with other providers like Amazon Connect and Avaya, so that you get out-of-the-box capability when you are going in with an eGain solution, so you don't have to work with those silos and integrate them yourselves. So those are the four very interesting areas where we have made good progress in the last 12 months. So let's look at the market. Let's look at what's going on. And I'll keep it quite understandable and simple, because I think at the end of the day, all of us need to have a mental framework of how to think about delivering the right sort of customer engagement experience. Most of us will relate to this. The number one thing that customers care about, and you'll see the C, which is the customer, A, that's the agent, and B, that's business, the ABC that we constantly talk about. There's no surprise here. What is interesting to us, and you will see some more detail around this through the day, is the third point. As customer interactions are becoming more mechanical, more digital, more automated, more transactional, there is a distinct gap emerging, which all of us can sense, in terms of brand affinity, the level of trust between organizations and clients and customers gets risked, not because you're delivering a poor quality product or service, but because you are automating the transactions to a point where people are in and out of the experiences extremely quickly. And so there is a gap left in terms of guidance, in terms of listening, in terms of empathy. That is creating both a challenge for existing brands as well as an opportunity for those who can deliver that sort of trust-building capability in the kind of way that leverages technology but does not compromise on the human elements. To us, that is an interesting trend that you will hear more about through the day. The second area where we see interesting trends, again, repeating a lot of what Brian has already talked about, is the workforce. The workforce that we are ushering in, that we are bringing into our own organizations, are folks who do not like the tools that we have for them. They like to work as they play. For the last 100 years, up until the digital revolution, when I got into the workforce, typically you worked with what you had. That was it. You did the best you could. But the new workforce does not believe that, which is good. They are empowered. They like what they see in their life. They have grown digital, and they want to have a digital workspace. They do not want to have tools that are boring, that do not give them a sense of fun and do not empower them. So a lot of companies, including us, are desperately trying to figure out how to deliver this sort of work environment that does create a sense of play, empowerment, and effectiveness. So when we think about the agent, which is the employee that Brian talked about, we think of these people as folks who do not want to settle for the old school way of doing things, where you have 5 or 6 applications that you go bouncing in and out of in order to deliver one customer experience, which is typical in many contact centers. So you have to reimagine how these tools are going to be. That's a trend that many of you are seeing, and I believe that it's an opportunity where you can deliver a solution that will create that sort of fun environment, empowerment, that employee engagement that Brian talked about, that you're able to deliver a much better customer experience as a result of that. The agent of the future, like I said, wants to have fun. And we think that there is one question that we all have to ask, and that is, what tool would you use? What tool would I use? Would we like to use the tools that we give our teams today, day in, day out? If you put yourself in that seat for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it becomes pretty obvious that these tools need to be reimagined. And then in the enterprise, what you see is just a lot of data, And because the data is getting created in every system, every software, every piece of technology that you have, there are lots of silos of data. There's no easy way to solve it. There's no easy way to eliminate it. But there is an important element of recognition of that fact and to try to manage it the best way you can. Gartner talks about, and Brian mentioned that the level of success that companies are having in trying to harness this data is not very high today, but the intent is vital. You have to drive toward more advantage and exploitation of your existing data assets. In fact, that, in my opinion, separates the winners from the losers in the new economy. And Brian made an interesting point, and I have a slight bit of color to that. He talked about buying shoes in the physical world and the digital world, and there's not much of a difference. I think he has a point. The process is the same, but there is one big difference. It might not seem very, very big, but it makes all the difference, which is there is no asymmetric information, meaning you can, as a supplier of shoes, sell to the world. You're not limited to your neighborhood. And therefore, if you offer a little bit of advantage to a consumer, the whole world of consumers out there is going to rush to you. And therein lies the big gap, the increasing gap that Brian talks about. That these small advantages in customer experience and engagement get magnified in business performance because you are applying it to a much bigger market. It's a digital world. There are no boundaries or physical limits. To us, when we're thinking about customer engagement for you, those are the small advantages that we want to deliver in quick succession. That's what we want to deliver for you. So, clearly, the platform approach that we have been driving is important, and we all understand that platforms reduce the connectivity costs. But the other part that is critical here is you have to balance the fact that there is no perfect solution out there that eliminates interconnect completely. However, there are solutions out there that minimize the data interconnect costs and the openness of the platform and the security of data exchange. These are the things that we see our enterprise clients struggling with through their data teams, through their privacy teams, through their cybersecurity teams. Time and again, we find that with all the investments, for instance, we have made in data security, privacy, and certification in our cloud, we are able to deliver cloud-based connected solutions to large organizations like banks, like government organizations, healthcare organizations. So yes, we all understand that connecting systems is really important, but there are challenges along the way, and some providers do a better job of helping you connect that because they have the ability to maintain security and certify the security levels that you need in your organizations. Very important to get that speed in innovation. Intent is important, but the capability of the solution helps you deliver to that intent. The last thing that we feel is kind of the emerging challenge of this new economy is content. Content, overwhelmingly so now, is an area where businesses are grappling with how do you manage the variation and the variety of content that gets created because of the kind of businesses that you all are leading. And that comes from a few areas. One, the rate at which you are improving your products and services keeps going up. So content, the long tail of content, continues to grow because now you have 5 versions of the same content because of different product improvements than typically you may have had 3 in the past. So that drives content growth. The next thing is products are getting more fancy, more complex, more sophisticated. You're bundling them in interesting ways. Again, the associated non-structured data, non-transactional data, things about the product information, troubleshooting, how to use it, how to market it, all that continues to explode for every variation. And then lastly, the number of channels, as Brian talked about, as those proliferate, you need content that is relevant to different channels. What works for chat may not work for the phone. What works for the phone may not work for messaging. And none of those might work for email. So your content now is getting personalized down to a level where managing and maintaining and keeping it all together is very, very challenging. With that sort of environment now, you have a customer engagement challenge where how you deliver that know-how, that content to your customers, and how you measure and manage that process is knowledge. And that's one of the core elements, we believe, critical to the success of good customer experience, good customer engagement. When we talk to our client leaders in large customer service organizations, and we go in and our experts go sit next to some of the contact center agents and spend time listening to and watching what they do, the number one thing we see is this anxiety around finding the right answer when the customer is on the phone or on chat in real time. And very often, the answer ends up being what the agent remembers, not necessarily what is correct. And with a workforce that is constantly churning, which all of you are well aware of, contact centers attrit at about a third in the best case scenarios every year. So a third of your workforce changes every year. In that environment, you're talking about this complex content portfolio that agents are supposed to somehow figure out the right answer based on spur-of-the-moment questions. It's critical to you have the right sort of tools that help you with knowledge and help you tame the content challenge in organizations, not just the data challenge. Data is very critical, but content is sort of its parallel and critical bit of complexity that needs to be managed and leveraged. So the question we do think with, and this is something that we have kind of developed over time, is to not worry about the content to begin with. Instead, you focus on the questions. You focus on the questions that are asked in these customer interactions. And when you start with a question in mind, then suddenly you clarify and you distill out a lot of the non-essential, infrequently used content. and work the 80-20 rule to your advantage. And that's something that we see a lot of organizations now starting to do well. You'll hear from some of my colleagues through the day how some of you are doing an excellent job of taking advantage of this approach to knowledge and learning and curation. And the learning obviously involves a lot of complex technology underneath it, like AI and process guidance, but you as a business do not need to worry about that. What you worry about is what sorts of questions are being asked by your customers. And how do you ensure that those questions get the right kind of response? So these are the three things that we see, the three trends around the customer, around the business, and around the agents. Let's look at designed experiences, which is something we have been talking about for the last 6 months or so, and we've seen a lot of interest in. How do you purposefully and deliberately design the experiences for your customers, for your business owners, and for your agents? Let's give you some examples. We're looking at these three stakeholders: the agent, the business, yourselves, and the customer. And we see an interesting inversion in priority in the way you think about these experiences. We call them the CAB model, which is you start with the customer in mind, obviously, because you're designing the end experience of the customer. In order to deliver that well, you need to think about the agent experience. And in order to deliver that well, you need to now worry about the business experience of managing and maintaining the environment. So when you're delivering, you deliver it backwards. Small steps, manageable, quick improvements. Start with the business in mind. In other words, if your teams can do a good job of getting the innovation out to your agents and your customers quickly, if your teams can do a good job of managing and maintaining and enhancing the capabilities on the platform, then that will result in the agents getting a better experience over time, and then in turn, the customer is going to get the experience that you want to deliver. So you think backwards, and that becomes a nice way to organize your priorities of who are the partners you're working with. As Brian said, there is no one partner that you will have, but the partners who think about the business experience as much as about the agent and customer experience are likely to help you deliver at speed toward the innovation that you're trying to accomplish. Let's look at a couple of areas now, switching gears. The third bucket that I want to talk about. On the agent side, we have the notion of automation. Sorry, on the customer side, I apologize. On the customer side, we have the notion of automation, and this is something we've been talking about and delivering for some time now, automating the boring. What is routine, what is obvious, can be automated. And so you work toward automating that, and the capabilities you're looking to deliver toward that, and you'll see that in our demo and on our solutions, is around virtual assistants. That is a very important area. And we have had some great successes with virtual assistants, and we have learned a lot. You'll hear some of the detailed stories around virtual assistants and how we have improved our understanding of applying the technology, the invisible technology, to delivering that easy virtual assistance. And the other area that we see for automation that's very valuable is messaging. Messaging to us is a zero-experience user interface. Think about it. What it does is it says, I, as a consumer, do not care about using the user interface the way you structure your website or your app. I don't care about that. I have my messaging environment. It's my personal space. You serve me where I am, the way I want it. It's a very different way of looking at business, and no surprise. I mean, the consumer traction toward messaging is very, very high. So automation requires the right sort of technology, the invisible elements, and then the experience elements around messaging. The other thing that we think is critical, which goes back to the original point that I made around trust deficit in customer relationships, is assurance. How do you deliver assurance to your customers so that in all this automation that is going on, they don't feel like they're left hanging? They don't feel like they are not being taken care of, that they're not being heard, the human side of it. There was an interesting article I read couple of days ago. It was in the Harvard Business Review, talked about a study that has recently been done by a doctoral student at Harvard Business. She ran a test of loan applications, talking about assurance and anxiety of customers. She ran a test of loan applications with a credit union, a nonprofit bank in the US. And she broke down the experience into 3 buckets. The first bucket was clients all of them were applying for loans, so they wanted a loan. The bank had 3 ways of engaging with them by design. First was people who were getting a loan application once they filled it out, they got no updates from the bank until they got a yes or no at the end of it. You can imagine that's a pretty anxious process. The second one was they applied for the loan, and they got a lot of updates through proactive notifications, right? Saying you're at this point now, you got to the review stage, now your paperwork is complete, expect something in the next week or so, and so on, ultimately coming to the answer of yes or no. And the third one, which is the interesting one, is very similar to the second one with one twist. And the twist was every notification that went out went with an added link on it saying, if you wish to speak to or chat with one of our associates, you can click here. Just the link. And they ran this experiment over some period of time, and no surprise, what they found was that the difference in loan application completion after people were given the chance to go through the process, in the second case was 64%, in the third case was 80%. Just the fact that people had the choice or the option, and some of them did click on it, but not too many, to talk to someone about their loan situation. Where does it stand? How can you help me feel more comfortable, less anxious? The element of trust. And we see this as an interesting area of investment by clients. Most companies that we are working with recognize that digital interactions are efficient, but they do risk compromising your brand. One example of designed customer experience, for instance, is the way we see in our platform, starting with all the different messaging channels on the right. This goes right to left. You have different ways of interacting for the customer, which is fronted by the virtual assistant, but not a virtual assistant that is a one-trick pony, to Brian's point. This virtual assistant is connected back into the knowledge base, back into the advisor for seamless escalation. So that if there is an anxiety, if there is a sense of frustration, if there is a lack of know-how on the part of the virtual assistant, then seamlessly the human picks it up. The assurance and automation working together. Let's look at the agent side. As we said before, agent work is getting to be more complex because the simple stuff is getting automated. We all see that. Therefore, agents need tools to help them, to empower them, to ensure that they are able to do their work without getting stressed. Now, Brian made a good point about Reliant, NRG, the company that he mentioned, where employee engagement went up when they trained them and did all the other things that helped them feel better about their job. I like that. I think that's valuable. I would submit that we could help those businesses even more. I presume some of you will agree, if we had the right tools for them that would guide them through the conversations, that would give them the ability to not have to talk to each other in real time while they're on the phone or in a chat. So they're not looking and hunting for answers. To us, empowerment is about providing the right sorts of people capability as well as the right sort of technology associated with it. So for example, you'll see something about our digitalized desktop, which we are very, very excited about. This is an ability that will help businesses think about how to present the right sort of guidance to customers, in this case, the agents sitting in front of screens while they are trying to help the clients. And that presents you, if you do this right, what you do is you bring all that capability about knowledge, process guidance with AI, and analytics into an omni-channel framework, something that we deliver today. And that solution layers on top of existing systems of record. You will always have CRM systems. I'm sure all of you have multiple CRM systems. Most enterprises have multiple CRM systems, just because of legacy, because of M&A, because of departmental decisions, all sorts of reasons. But the reality is, almost every large enterprise has multiple CRM systems today. Almost all large enterprises have multiple contact center systems today. And for sure, they have multiple websites and multiple content repositories. So that is the take stock part of what Brian was talking about. You go about building a customer engagement hub, you got to start with the reality. The reality is that your enterprise has multiple systems of all kinds today. So how do you build a customer engagement hub on top of that? And the way we believe you do it is you bring it all together into this, what we are calling the omni-channel desktop. And by doing that, you can then serve up, using common knowledge and AI, you can serve up the right sorts of self-service and agent assistance across all the different touch points. That's available today. Of course, there'll be new channels added, right? Last year, we were not talking as much about Apple Business Chat. Today, that's very, very, very exciting for us. So new channels will constantly get added, but does not change the essential centralizing benefit of the customer engagement hub. Let's look at BX. This is the groups that most of you are overseeing. This is the group that has to manage and maintain all the systems, that has to tame the content, that has to make sure the data silos are connected. With any large enterprise, what we see is that ability to manage and orchestrate all the different capabilities of customer engagement in one place is vital for you to be able to do an effective job over time. And the second piece that we see as important on the BX side is to be able to improve the operational efficiency over time, right? More automation, more augmentation. How do you learn from the data that you're generating in the customer engagement? We'll talk about that in a second, about things that we are doing with our clients, some of you, which are very exciting around better learning, using machine learning, using deep learning, all the standard capabilities that are starting to develop in the market. It's not the invisible technology that you need to worry about. You need to worry about how you apply it in an architectural framework that helps you manage and maintain all these capabilities easily. The other part in designing a good BX for you is providing the sort of ongoing, proactive value coming from someone like us. I know we are not partners, to Brian's point, but we certainly intend to be partners, and so we work that way. And we come in with a proposition that gives you a continuous engagement through a 3-year period, which is typically how we engage with our prospects and customers, in that 3-year period, we will have multiple opportunities to innovate in quick succession using our innovation in 30 days, which is our ability to provide risk-free trial of our different solutions, and do this in a manner that makes business sense for you. And that brings us to the Innovation in 30 Days, this program that we've been running for a couple of years, but it's become really exciting now because we can have our customers try out new capabilities. You want to try a VA, you can try it in 30 days. You want to try our knowledge, you can try it in 30 days. That does not mean you're done with all the things you could do in 30 days, but it means that you can test it quickly. Aim small, miss small. That improves the odds of your success dramatically. In this sort of a transformational journey you're on, where you want to develop a customer engagement hub, you need to have the tools so you can make these quick choices, quick experiments. You can get the answers. Some of them will work, some of them won't. But you need that kind of structure in your engagement. Today, I urge you to take a look at some of the things that we're doing and see if that fits your profile. Many of you are obviously existing clients, and we love to show you more. But for those of you who are new to eGain, please take a look at how we engage. The last thing I want to talk to you about is what's new for us. And then I'll leave you with a few thoughts on the innovation vectors that we are driving. So the first thing that we want to talk to you about is how we are bringing the benefit of our new desktop we talked about, and you'll see that downstairs as well. I'll show you an example of that here. Our desktop is an omni-channel desktop, which means all the different channels with knowledge and AI as part of that solution. However, we recognize that in large enterprises, there will be existing systems of record, existing context. You cannot eliminate that overnight. You don't want to eliminate it overnight. What you want to do is to take advantage of a new design opportunity that we see coming up in contact centers. It's a very obvious one, and that has to do with the fact that almost every contact center now has agents looking at 2 monitors. Did I just disconnect? Okay. And that means there's an opportunity to provide a solution where you can see 2 screens connected with each other virtually. On one, you can have the context which you have in your organization today, your legacy context or existing context. And on another, you can have conversations with customers, but they are connected to each other. They're connected through invisible technology so that you don't have to mash up the UI experience into one screen. You don't have to force fit things through lots of information, dense data sitting around, which is typical of what we see in a lot of contact centers. Agents have so many data elements to look at, they don't know what to focus on. You can take a look at an approach like this, where on the right side, and you could flip it obviously, at preference, you have a traditional CRM system. In this case, happens to be Microsoft Dynamics. That's just an example. You could do the same with another one like Salesforce, or with your legacy CRM that you may have in-house. You may have built it. As long as it's a web-based application, we can work with it. And on the left side, you have the eGain desktop. In this case, because we are talking about a phone conversation, the left side has to do with guidance and knowledge and process. But if there were a digital interaction underway, the left side would be populated by the interaction tools that we offer for chat, for messaging, for co-browsing, while the right side continues to have the context from your existing systems of record. Once you see it working this way, it seems pretty obvious, I think. It seems useful. The customers we've been working with early on in this area are very excited about it. We hope you'll see some value in this as well. Ask us questions, tell us how we could do it better. So that's a very nice new thing we have brought about at the glass. And the insight that we are relying on is that most contact center agents now have 2 monitors. If that's not correct for you, obviously this does not apply. The next thing I want to talk to you about, which we're very excited about, is our Experience Studio. So the Experience Studio, and this is a problem we've been solving for some time, and now we have kind of brought it to a level of maturity where it is really useful for accelerating your trial of new capabilities in the eGain suite. And the idea is simple. Where you're delivering UI-based customer experiences, mostly in virtual assistants, in chat, in knowledge portals, you want to reduce the time it takes to brand align those user interfaces. Your brand, your colors, your font, your design, even though the underlying information and content and the exchange of information is happening from the eGain systems. And so we built out this nice UI-based tool where you can do WYSIWYG design of user interfaces. So for example, in the case of virtual assistants, if you want to design something which is much more graphic in terms of options that are being presented by the virtual assistant, you can do that by just dragging and dropping capabilities, by changing a few form fields. You don't have to go back to your IT groups or pay us a ton of money to design these bespoke experiences for you. So this is another way to accelerate the adoption. And then lastly, the new messaging hub that we have kind of built and developed, which we have a session on as well later on in the day. The idea that all the different types of messaging that you can have in the current sort of open ecosystem are all going to be serviced through the same intelligence, the same virtual assistants, the same knowledge base within eGain. And this is something that is exemplified with different sorts of messaging systems. So for example, if you were using SMS, that's a fairly rudimentary, very popular, but very rudimentary user model. You cannot really do a lot of structured information exchange, right? On the other hand, if you were using something like Apple Business Chat, there's a lot of capabilities in Apple Business Chat now where you can start to show graphics, you can start to show choices, you can start to show payment options, you can pay through Apple Pay, you can start showing search and map. So all these advanced capabilities in different types of messaging systems, we are enabling you to take advantage of. So we will essentially map it to the level of the messaging framework. If it's SMS, our ability will automatically be set to that same level, whereas if it's Apple Business Chat, you can start taking advantage of all the cool capabilities in the same platform. You don't have to create new integrations. You don't have to manage the complexity of different messaging types. To us, that is a big change. Now we have set the stage for an environment where you can quickly experiment with new customer engagement channels. You can try them, you don't like them, you can turn them off. But you don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to test out a new messaging channel. Point solutions are something that we feel become real challenges for you over time. Someone who just does Apple Business Chat or someone who just does SMS, that creates another data silo for you. Whereas in our environment, all that feeds back into the common platform. So we are very excited about this. Hope you'll go take a look at it downstairs, ask us questions, give us ideas. The last thing I want to talk to you about is what's ahead of us. And here, we can use your help, because these are new things we are playing with. But we want to show you, because it's early, and we think that we can get great ideas from you, things that you would like to see, what matters to you. Perhaps we can adapt, and we can create some design partnerships in the process. So the top 3 things that we are looking at. Number 1, is the digitalization of voice. Very simple, very obvious, and very valuable. What we mean is the rate at which innovation is happening on the digital side that we are part of far exceeds the rate at which typically voice-based customer engagement innovation has happened in the past. But that is changing now. With a lot of new technologies, cloud-based, as well as new ways of looking at the problem, like Amazon Connect has started to look at new ways, and some of the other partners of ours are also looking at it. How can we tap into the conversation streams, both on the customer side as well as the agent side, to add value into it using all the digital innovation that we have today? For example, how do you ensure that the agent's responses are compliant in band, not after the fact, not by recording terabytes and petabytes of information and then going searching in them years later because someone complained? That was the old model. The new model demands that you do this in real time. Are there ways, for instance, that the solution, something that eGain offers or others offer, can ensure that what the agent says is compliant? And if it is not compliant, then the conversation doesn't move forward. Sounds kind of esoteric, but it's not that esoteric, actually. Just ways, the moment we can tap into the real-time voice streams in real time, we can do very smart things on it. Just like on the digital side, because we have access to the digital streams of conversation. Conversational processing is something that will unlock a lot of value on the voice side, just like it does on the digital side. And so we are working in that area. We're doing some interesting things that you'll hear about through the day, and we'd love to get your thoughts on it. The second area that we are innovating and we see as a big opportunity is what we're calling widening the aperture of the data that you look at to learn from in the enterprise. And what I mean by that is, if you're learning machine learning, classic machine learning, which is looking at a whole bunch of data and looking at patterns, the amount of data you have, the degree of detail that you have, ultimately determines the level of predictability. Brian made that point about, if you remember his big poster on Customer Engagement Hub, on the top right was the analytic CRM bit, right? That analytic capability is what I'm talking about here. Up until now, what we have done is focused on the data that we had within our platform, coming from channels like self-service, digital self-service, chat, email, co-browse, messaging, things that we controlled, the streams that we had access to. What we are starting to do now, working with some of our clients, is looking at enterprise data associated with that customer and that particular conversation, bring that together with our conversational data and see if we can learn and predict better. And it turns out that we can. Not surprising. In fact, as it turns out, most of us are highly deterministic. If you know me very well, when I call you, you pretty much know why I'm calling you. So for businesses, this is a big opportunity. If in the enterprise you have a ton of information about me as a customer, let's say, if you take advantage of all that data, then your ability to predict when I call or chat or reach out on your website, that predictability goes up. And we have seen that in a couple of examples where we are engaged with customers. We think there is a big opportunity there to deliver beyond just customer engagement data. Look at the enterprise data that's available around the customer. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Ian Jones will speak about that when he gets up here in an hour or so. The last thing to me, which is very intriguing to us, and so we are investing in this early days, is how do we build vertical solutions that can go beyond the horizontal solution capabilities we have today. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is, if you look at, for example, our number one vertical is financial services. It's not the only one, obviously, there are others. But in financial services, for example, relationship building is something that brands are worried a lot about because more and more fintech-oriented approaches are eating away at the margins. And so brands are trying to figure out how to create more stickiness with their customers, even while there is a move toward more self-service, more transactionality. We believe there's an opportunity to look at doing more with technology, with AI particularly, where we can provide guidance and tools that will help large financial organizations provide more than just transactional service, more than just responses, taking a broader view to the financial well-being of the customer. And that's a new area for us, but we think that there's an opportunity to look at creating value on the layer that sits on top of our current capability set. And Evan, one of my colleagues, he's going to talk about that right after me. So these are the three areas that we see quite intriguing, early days, but we see a lot of opportunity that we can go beyond just the platform and our tools. And what you see in all this, if you look at the common pattern across these three, it has to do with taking advantage of the content that gets exchanged, the conversation that is happening between the customer and the company, not just the logic and the software that underlies it. So I think we are embarking here on a journey moving forward where we go work with you, our clients and prospects, to understanding and benefiting from the content of conversations that is happening between you and your customers. To us, it's really exciting. It's early, but we love to engage with you and see how we can help you more. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.